dear audience, we're not gonna waste your time with unnecessarily long introductions of hey, here we are, follow, subscribe, or whatever else that other YouTubers say. We're here to provide value for you, right? Michael was accepted to Harvard. Today we're breaking down his full accept application. This is exclusive 1 hour interview just for you. And Michael, it's nice to have you here. Would you mind translating your screen and showing the secret application that everyone wants to see?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, let's do that right now. All right, can you see everything okay?
Yes, perfect. I saw in one of your videos that you were like, I got to Harvard without much extracurriculars or something. Is it true?
I would say my extracurriculars were, I think, my bigger part of my application. I think what you maybe heard was my GPA. My
Mm-hmm.
GPA was actually like pretty low, especially my class rank. I went to a public charter school, but my class rank was I was barely top 25% of my class, so not really
Top
the best class rank.
top 25%.
Yeah.
Oh wow, interesting. SAT 1510, right?
Yes. Yes.
SAT 1510. 3 on European history. Did you still report this AP grade?
Yeah. I reported all my AP scores. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Just for the audience watching, in general, if you have 3 on APs, it's not recommended to report it, right? Just to like keep it 4 or 5s normally. But
Yeah.
it worked with Michael. And by the way, I don't see any grades for government and politics and economics. Is that how it's supposed to be?
Yeah. These two I was taking during my senior year, so I didn't know the results yet.
Oh, got it. So there were no like predicted grades, right?
No predictions.
Oh, got it. Interesting. Would you mind scrolling up to the honors part, honors section? In general, right, many people have this kind of like fear maybe that, oh, I don't have any international or national achievements for honors, right? And this is just something that might comfort the audience, like, oh my God, I don't need like much national or international. So school or state regional level, and I see one national, which is nice. Um, but yeah, man, like you don't need necessarily national international level accomplishments. And by the way, honors don't matter as much as compared to extracurriculars.
That
So
is correct. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So honors here, would you mind going one by one through each activity and explaining the impact and how you achieved it and giving a little bit background about it?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start with my first one, of course. This was basically I was the student representative. So there's two student representatives that are selected out of 36,000 students.
Yeah.
Basically, our job is to represent the students in our school district. So I was basically the liaison between administration of our school district and also the students. So I connected the students to the administration, sort of as like a bridge, if you want to see it as that way.
Yeah, sure.
I got it because um, well, at the end of my junior year, principals around the school district have to nominate one student to interview for the position. So there's a total of 12 nominees throughout the whole school district. Those 12 nominees interview for two positions, and I was one of the two students who were selected.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why I made this number one was because a lot of my application was about community impact. So, typically when you want to rank or write your honor section on your Common App, it's pretty good to like rank it in terms of importance. So not only impact, so national. You can see my national award is not my first award.
Hmm.
It's my school, state, regional. It's something that means a lot to me, something that I made a lot of impact with. And since my application was really community focused and making impact on community, of course, it's going to be my number one honor.
Got it. So it's just to show a little bit of your values right there, right? So that community is more important than just national label for my award, right?
Of
Interesting.
course, yeah, exactly.
For the second, um, what was it? Let's go to
Yeah,
the second.
so a little bit of background on me. I applied as a computer science major.
Yeah.
That was my main major. So I did some hackathons in high school. These were just I just got first place in a hackathon. So it was like a regional level hackathon. So I thought it'd be pretty cool to put on. So that was just number two. Be self-explanatory.
Nice. You can just go like through each activity,
Sure,
uninterrupted.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And then this was Questbridge. So Questbridge is a program for low-income first-generation students. And I received not only the College Prep Scholar Award in your junior year, but also the finalist award. So that's for junior and senior year awards. And then my fourth award was I did a research program at UC Santa Cruz, and there was an award given for outstanding research. And these students were specifically chosen because of one, their background. So, like I said, I'm a first generation low income student, but also if their research was outstanding or not, if they were on good standing with their research mentor throughout the program. I was one of the students selected for this stipend.
Hmm.
And then finally, like I said earlier, a lot of my application was based around community work. So I wanted to include more leadership, more community based awards. So as my last award, I chose a leadership award that the mayor of my city presented to me.
So from what I see, you mentioned that you applied to computer science, right?
Yeah, computer science.
I didn't see much awards in computer science, man, except the hackathon one. I see,
Yes.
but the remaining ones are really more of like community-based impact, community-based initiative type of thing. This is very interesting. Did you know before applying that computer science is the most overrepresented major and that it will be harder to get in? Did you know that?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to be a computer science major since third grade.
Yeah.
So I've always been like programming and coding, but when I got to high school, I didn't have as many like opportunities to like participate in competitions. So I didn't have access to like used to go like through like any coaching or whatnot. I didn't even know it existed actually because I don't really go to a competitive high school.
Okay.
So just in its lack of opportunity, and also I was aware that computer science was a very impacted major,
Yeah.
but I'll talk about this a little bit later. But I actually applied as computer science and double major in public policy. So
Oh.
this was part of my strategy to make myself not really like the average California Bay Area Asian male who applies for computer science.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like applying as a double major, it really helped diversify my profile because I'm not just computer science major anymore. Now I'm into community work, I'm into public policy, and my awards show that, my activities will show that too.
Exactly, and this is what is required actually to
Hmm.
kind of like create a niche for yourself, just like you did effectively, right? Just public policy, and what's most importantly, it it should not be just any niche. This niche should be connected to your activities. So it's not like if if the game was just to choose an unpopular major and get in, everybody would be choosing like gender studies or like whatever else. But the important part is your activities and the passion for your major in your essays should match with that completely. So I think it definitely worked for you. I also see. I think I saw. Perhaps I'm mistaken. Correct me on this. But were you accepted to Harvard early or was it in the
A regular decision.
regular decision? To which university did you apply early?
I applied to three schools early. So I did Questbridge.
Hmm.
So through Questbridge, I applied to MIT, Stanford, and Columbia early.
MIT, Stanford, and Columbia.
Yes.
Bro, wait. But when you're applying to Stanford, they have the restricted election, right?
Yeah, so through Questbridge, you're allowed to apply to the Stanford's early action program through Questbridge. It isn't restrictive. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, specifically through Questbridge, you're allowed to apply to MIT or Columbia as well, in addition to Stanford.
Oh, wow. To Columbia as well,
Yeah.
right? Columbia, which has ED, not EA.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So once again, through Questbridge, it's like it's a different sort of early program.
It's like privileged, more of like a privileged program, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. And there were all rejections there?
I was deferred from Questbridge, and then I got deferred again through early, and then I was ultimately rejected from all three.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Are the decisions for Quest Pitch released at the same time as for others, like mid-December, like about 15th, 13th December?
All of Questbridge is released like 2 weeks before early, so
Yeah,
December
yeah, yeah.
2nd, and then you reapply through early, and
Got it.
then you reapply through regular if you're deferred.
When you were just awaiting those decisions, were you already preparing your RD applications for Harvard, for example, or were you like hoping that you'll get in and you don't have to work, and after like the third you start working.
Yeah, so actually, I wasn't anticipating to apply to as many schools as I applied to. I applied to 36 schools in total.
36
But
schools.
yeah,
Wow.
36. So I originally only planned to apply to about 10 to 15 schools. So really, once I didn't get in through Questbridge, I kind of had a realization that like, I should probably try a little bit harder, and just shoot my shot to more places. Because originally I wanted to stay in California. A lot of the Questbridge schools that are through the Questbridge program are out of California. So, that's why I only applied to MIT and Columbia and Stanford.
Hmm.
But after I didn't get in through Questbridge on December 2nd, I decided, yeah, let me just apply to the whole United States. Basically, I applied to like, yeah, basically everywhere.
Okay, interesting. To which other
Yeah,
universities did you get accepted except Harvard?
except Harvard. So, I had a pretty good turnout during regular decision. Early round wasn't as good. During regular decision, I got in through Berkeley Computer Science, and then I also got waitlisted at Cornell and Yale.
Waitlist Cornell and Yale, right?
Yes.
Bro, how come Cornell didn't accept it, Harvard accepted? This is
Yeah,
like,
so actually, here's a funny story. So, Questbridge, I don't know if you've seen one of my videos, but one of my most popular videos is I really don't recommend Questbridge. And one of the reasons for that is because Questbridge has a different set of essays you need to write for schools.
yes.
And one of the schools that go through Questbridge is Cornell. So, actually, I wrote my essays for Cornell through the Common Application, but when I submitted my common application for Cornell, they rejected it like within a few days through email. They told me through email that they couldn't accept the application. Now we need to redo my essays through Questbridge. So,
Oh,
it was a completely different set of questions, like new questions I had never seen. And I had to rewrite my essays in like 3 hours. And I submitted my Cornell supplements with only 3 hours. They were my first draft, no editing, no
wow.
reviewing. And that honestly, that's probably why I got waitlisted and not accepted. So if I
Interesting.
hadn't applied through Questbridge, I probably would have gotten in through Cornell.
Is it safe to say that outside of UC Berkeley, Harvard was the only top school you were accepted to?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow, this is
yeah.
crazy. Very, but this is the only top school you need to get accepted to anyway. Why do you need others if you got a Harvard, right? So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
Uh, well, in addition to Harvard, I was also waitlisted to a lot of other schools that are pretty good for computer science. So, for example, like Carnegie Mellon,
Hmm.
I was also waitlisted there for computer science. And I think one of the reasons why I was waitlisted so much was just because of my class rank. Since my class rank is like on the lower end of competitive applicants, there's a lot of discrepancy when it comes to me compared to other applicants applying to the Ivy Leagues
Yeah.
or Stanford, for example. But the thing with Harvard is they don't consider class rank. So they didn't even see that I was, barely top 25% of my class. And
Even if
that's just one of the reasons
even if they
why.
saw, they were like, we don't really care about that. Let's move on to the other parts of the application.
Yeah, yeah,
Another interesting part about this whole process is that, students spend like 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, or whatever it is, preparing applications, like doing extracurriculars, or like writing essays, like half a year before, or all of this lengthy preparation, just for the admissions officers to review their entire application in like 5 to 8 minutes, and like either to say, all right, rejection, acceptance, okay, next. It's like
yeah.
it happens so quick. It's literally 5 to 8 minutes.
Mhm.
It can be like 10 minutes on the higher end, but this is really the range that we're looking at. This is very interesting. I'm very interested to look in your extracurricular activities because the academic part, in terms of it was 1510. It's a great score. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to like put you down or something, but it's like for Harvard, I think the 25th percentile is 1520, right? And so
Yeah.
this is why I'm really interested to see your essays and extracurriculars because like you know they're definitely were the reason that compensated for your class rank and that were the reason you were accepted. So let's get to your extracurriculars.
Yeah. So Yeah, so my activities. So this was my favorite part of my application throughout high school. As you can tell, I wasn't really as much of like book smart. I wasn't really into like studying so much. I preferred like doing extracurriculars. So I'll just go straight into it.
Exactly.
But my top extracurricular was a nonprofit that I founded. Basically, I combined my interest with computer science and like community work, public policy, combined into one extracurricular. So
Mm.
I come from a very like disadvantaged city. We aren't, there's very little opportunity here. It's very poor, a lot of criminal activity.
Oh, wow.
So I created a nonprofit organization that essentially has a lot of extracurriculars for students and high schoolers to apply for on just one website. So it's a website that has hundreds of opportunities, and we're in 9 different cities all throughout our entire region. So yeah, that was my main extracurricular. I spent a lot of time doing this. I started building the idea in ninth grade, and then I began executing it during 10, 11, and 12. And throughout that time, I've engaged with so many city officials. I've worked with so many different people. I've signed so many memorandums of understanding. The amount of work that I've done throughout my city, my school district, and just overall the entire area that I'm surrounding, the 9 different cities that we operate in. It's fantastic, and that's part of the reason why I put it number one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The When it comes to this activity specifically, was it a website where there were all opportunities listed, or what else was also included in the work for this activity?
Yeah, so I could show you the website right now if you want to see
Yeah,
that.
of course, let's do it.
Yeah. So it's volunteero.net, and basically, this is our mission statement. So exactly what I was saying, the idea was to enable the youth in my city to impact community by doing safe things. It's inclusive activities, but it's also meaningful volunteering opportunities. So as of right now, we have 3 sections. So this was our main one. This is what we started with. This is just volunteering events. As you can see, there's hundreds. There's so
Yeah,
many
yeah.
different things you can do
There's a lot. There's a lot.
across many different cities, right? And then we expanded to academic opportunities because we noticed that students, not only do they need a way to volunteer for the community, but of course academics is also important. So we provided free learning opportunities just for students to access.
Hmm.
And we also have pre-med opportunities as well, just for extracurricular wise, if anyone wants to do pre-med.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This was our number one activity, right? Which combined public policy and computer science.
Yeah, and this website doesn't really do as much justice because a lot of the work that I did through this nonprofit was in person. I did most of the work was you'll see in my essays I talk about this a lot, but it's just about building community throughout my city and beyond.
Interesting. Let's
Mhm.
move to your second activity and in general, one by one, just like we did with honors.
Yeah, so number 2 was my student government position. So I was ASB president and also ASB secretary. Lots of other leadership positions. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just student council president, student council secretary.
Hmm.
Once again, my passion for community and public policy showing there as well. And then third was the main research I did. So in the junior summer, so the summer after my junior year, I did the science internship program, or SIP. This was at UC Santa Cruz, and I was hired as a physics research intern. So yeah, I did this, and then this is also related to the previous honor that I had the stipend.
Hmm.
And then through this opportunity, I was offered a computer science research internship. Once again through UC Santa Cruz, and I did this throughout the remaining of my junior summer, and then also throughout my entire senior year. So we were actually able to publish a research paper to IEEE. It's an international conference. We published the computer science research paper,
Hmm.
um, and yeah, so this was actually like this extracurricular was probably my biggest academic achievement
Hmm.
in my entire profile, just given the fact that we were able to publish that research paper.
Interesting. But you
Um,
still ranked it below the research that wasn't published, right?
yeah, so during the time of my applications, we didn't have it published yet. So I just mentioned it in my additional information that like it is incoming, and we ended up publishing just about a month later. So in February, March, that time was when we officially got published. So yeah, that's why I have it lower.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, man. Let's go through all the activities.
Yeah, yeah. So next activity, this was my first honor. So I turned it. I had it as an extracurricular and then as an honor as well because getting the position is one thing, and I felt like that was an impactful honor, impactful award. But another thing was the work that I completed. So this basically, I was just describing what I was doing with that honor and I guess position overall.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is probably my favorite extracurricular or one of my favorites. I mentioned my interest in computer science. So, of course, I was a computer science major, and this was one of my hobbies. I've been coding since third grade, so I'm pretty experienced with programming, and it's something that's become like sort of like a hobby for me. So,
Mm-hmm.
in my pastime, I would just code random projects and whatnot. So this I thought it would add personality and yeah.
And it just also amplifies your spike when it comes to computer science plus public policy.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Perfect. Next
Yeah.
activity I
Yeah.
see student advisory board, right? Something related to that again.
Yes. Yeah. So once again, more public policy, more community impact. The student advisory board was another thing that was offered through my school district. It was essentially just an advisory board where students around the school district would come together and talk about issues. So we talk about safety, budget, financial literacy, and this was all about like creating the most optimal school district for the students. So it was about 50 students throughout the entire school district coming together, once every month maybe, and just talking about ways we could improve our school district.
Mm-hmm.
And after this, I also was part of the science internship program. Was I was selected to speak at Google to not only talk about my experience at science internship program through UCSC, but also what I did with my research there. So I mentioned it was sort of like a research presentation. So I presented my research and the work I did there.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was also giving opportunities to students in my area. So I think I was one of two students, or one of two students from my city or my county. So my county really didn't have too much representation in this program. So I was also selected to email schools and guide outreach to students in my area.
It was part of the opportunity that was presented to you after the UC Santa Cruz research, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. And the
Yeah.
last two activities, I believe, is it mobile robotics summer program? You had robotics projects as well.
Yeah, so it wasn't really too much of a competitive program, but basically a university that's local to me, so just about like a 20-minute drive away, they had a summer program for high school students. It was free, and it was a good opportunity for me to experience robotics, and also just it's a fun programming thing. So it was a small extracurricular, but I thought it'd be interesting to mention. And then
Yeah.
for my last one, I was hired as a AI prompter. So I prompted LLMs and GPT models to generate English curriculums for a local elementary school.
Interesting. So it was the summer before your senior year?
Yes, summer before my senior year.
Crazy. The
Yeah,
elementary school was already integrating, confidently integrating AI into the curriculum, right?
yeah, yeah.
Very interesting. So, in general, I believe these are all of your activities, right?
Yeah, this is it.
In general, from what I see, and in general, the audience can observe, is that there's a lot of leadership here. It's like a cohesive team of leadership across all of your activities. Um, it's a lot of like community service type of leadership again, right? Which goes back to show your public policy and stuff. This is quite a unique set of activities, by the way, in general, because again, students who are applying for computer science, and even if it's something else like public policy in your case, there's not much computer science activities related here, but there's more of like leadership and community service and helping my community and providing opportunities type of leadership, which is very interesting. And one comment about your first activity is that when you combined public policy and computer science, this is like one of the things that you definitely need to do, especially when you're combining two unrelated activities, right? Like computer science and public policy, it can be computer science or linguistics, computer science or history, it can be economics and gender studies, like talking about women's being underrepresented in the like government jobs, for example. So in general, if you're combining these kind of two unrelated activities, and this is just me talking to our viewer, is you have to make a project, at least one, preferably more, but at least one, where it connects both of these activities. And just to show that you are truly passionate about it, just to find interesting ways to combine those activities and represent it in terms of impact and helping others. Um, but yeah, I would say again, I'm glad we're interviewing you exactly because it's like your activities are great to show that um, you know Harvard doesn't necessarily require only International Math Olympiad gold or like this cured cancer by the age of 14 type of people, but like just being a leader in your community and having a few accomplishments and just substantiating all of it with the essays can really do the job. Let's go to the essays now. And one thing is that right now, since the Common App has already opened and a lot of people have already started writing their essays, I want to make it not only I want to make this part of the interview not only about what you wrote in the essays, but also what would you recommend writing in essays for the applicants for this year?
Yeah. So yeah, really good question. Yeah. So this was the prompt that I chose to write about. I think there's 8 different common application prompts to choose from.
Exactly.
I chose about this one. So, throughout my youth, I didn't come from the best household. My mom struggled with a lot of mental health issues, and this made me become really anxious and really, really shy. So I had issues with speaking. I had a speech impediment growing up, and just overall, like I wasn't the most social kid. So throughout high school, I made it my goal to become more of a leader in my community and get out of my shell basically. And the way I did this was, of course, joining my leadership class, joining student council, engaging with administration, and bridging gaps that I saw on my campus that I also personally experienced at my own home. So a lot of people have this there's a lot of people want to talk about the traumas that they've gone through or like the issues that they faced in their childhood. And even though that is also what I wrote about, it is hard to execute. And if you want to write about this topic where you had an issue when you were growing up and you overcame it, it's really important to focus like 80% of your essay on what you did to grow and become a hero in your own story. Because if you spend the entire essay just crying about what you went through, oh, you had such a bad household, like you struggled so much, you had depression, it's not going to go well for you. You have to talk about what you did, how that motivated you, and how that changed you as a person, because ultimately you're a piece of paper to these admissions officers, but through your personal statement you become a person. You paint a beautiful picture and you show who you are. So my essays, if you divide it, it's about 30% the background, what I experienced in my childhood. The rest of it is completely about what I did to, change my community and how I personally like used my experiences in my childhood to motivate me to become a better leader and to escape my shell, and become like a more of a passionate leader, someone who can speak and speak up for others.
Turn your trauma to a superpower and spending 15% of your essays talking about just giving context for the problem that you faced and 85 about what you did about it, how you changed and how you used it to help others.
Exactly.
Perfect. Yeah. This is actually one of the things we're actually talking about this exact same narrative with the previous student that I interviewed. a Christian who was accepted to I think 4 Ivy Leagues and like 5 top 20 unis, and he applied the same exact strategy that we're talking right now. Is if you have a trauma or if you have something like personal backstory, sad personal backstory, don't make all of your essay about it, but like make it very short in the beginning just to give context for the reader. But the overwhelming majority of the essay should be about what you did about it and more about the positive things that you have transformed yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about transformation from having this problem to solving this problem and hopefully helping others along the way. In whatever area it is, really. It doesn't have to be public policy, computer science. It can be whatever else, as long as you're helping others while solving your own problem, right? Interesting essays. I'm pretty sure our viewers, and by the way, Michael, will the viewers be able to access this Common App file if all of your personal information is removed?
I think I'm gonna have to say no to that. I think I wrote about a lot of personal stuff in my essays,
Sure.
and then I wrote about a lot of extenuating circumstances in my additional information section,
Sure.
which is something I'll talk about shortly. So
Sure.
the additional information section is really important, and I use that to explain a lot of my personal struggles.
Sure, it's no problem at all. The audience then can read this file during the interview. I mean, we have effectively shown it all, right? So if you're interested in reading more, you can just, kind of go through the entire interview and read it. This is my advice. Let's go through additional information. Would you like to show it, or is it something that you prefer to not show?
I think it's best if I just talk about it. And
All right. Let's do it.
yeah, so my additional information section was really, really important to my application. So, like I mentioned, I went through a lot of issues growing up. And in addition to that, I grew up in a really dangerous city with lacking opportunities. So I used this additional information section to its maximum, basically. I elaborated on everything from my family issues, my personal mental health issues, to the issues I faced within my own city with a lack of opportunity, and the lack of funding, the educational disparities. I explained all that throughout my additional information section. Now, a few regrets I have with this is, number one, filling it out to the maximum. These admissions officers, they are reading so many personal essays, so many supplements. If you write so much in the additional information section, it becomes to a point where it's redundant. You don't have to repeat things so many times and just continuously say things over and over. And I feel like in my additional information section, at some points, some of the things that I was saying was either irrelevant or redundant. Of course, it did work out in the end, but if I could go back and I was a returning applicant, that is something that I would probably change.
The additional information is very important to give information about your background, in the sense that all universities are really valuing your holistic background that you come from. And you and, for example, the other student who is applying for the same major with the same activities might not be compared just because you didn't have any access to opportunities as you're outlining in your additional information, but that other student had. So personal context is something that you should absolutely include, and especially if you're from rural area, or if you're a low-income student, or you didn't have other opportunities in any sense of this word, you should absolutely write about it in additional information. Now, having said that, it has to be concise as humanly possible, because as Michael said, you effectively nailed it. Missions officers spend, first of all, very little time reading all the applications, right? And second of all, within that time, what they really hate to see is students wasting their times with what they have already read in the personal statement or in the other parts of your application that you might be repeating in your additional information. So this is something to avoid, certainly. But yeah, it makes sense that you decide to use additional information in that sense. The only advice or correction is just to be more concise, as you mentioned. Let's move to your supplemental essays for Harvard. Oh, and by the way, before we do that, you can scroll down until your supplemental essays. I just want to ask, what is your advice to writing personal statement in general? If you were to see top 3 advice of writing personal statements from your experience.
In terms of writing personal statements, I think step number one is, of course, start early. I started in July, and every single day since I started in July, I would read as many essays as possible that were successful and were accepted to top 20 schools, the Ivies, Hypism. I would read essays that worked basically. And, that sort of just trains your mind into understanding what type of writing that you need to do in these personal statements, because a lot of these students are used to writing academic papers, research papers, papers that they would write for their school. But that's not what admissions officers want to read. They want to read a story that's creative and beautiful, that paints a beautiful picture. So it's really important to just read as many essays as possible and to see as many examples.
Read as many successful cases as possible.
Yes.
Interesting. Let's talk about your first Harvard supplemental essay. How did you approach it? How did you go about, in
Yeah.
general, about brainstorming it? Because to my understanding, since you were applied to so many schools, and again, I'm guessing you started 2 weeks before the deadline, right? You were in a crazy rush. How many times,
Yeah.
in general, how much time it took for you to write this whole Harvard application?
Yeah, so Harvard I actually spent a lot of time on. So out of the schools that I applied to out of state, Harvard was one of the schools that I really wanted to, get into out of state because, of course it's Harvard, right? So
Yeah.
I made the specific effort to try really hard on the supplements. And I probably spent hundreds of hours just alone on my Harvard supplemental essay. So
Oh, wow.
it's just revision after revision after revision. And I feel like I've basically perfected, for the most part, these essays.
Perfect. I think viewers can read the essays at their own convenience if they want to do that. But let's just talk about some of the narratives that you employed. So, what was this essay about?
Yeah, so this essay is asking you sort of how I'm going to contribute to Harvard. And like the way I introduced my topic was, of course, I wanted to talk about the background that I'm from. So I elaborated on the city that I'm from and how it has a lot of disparities. And then in my second paragraph, I talked about how at Harvard, I want to join a very specific club. So Tech for Social Good is a club at Harvard, and basically what they do is they are a computer science club that builds or uses software engineering to help local organizations, just become better and assist them through software engineering. And that's just something that really resonated with me since I came from a city that had low benefits, large educational disparities. And one of the ways I wanted to solve that, and one of the big narratives that I employed throughout my whole application, was applying computer science and technology to public policy to create a better world and society for everyone.
So, you gave a context about your personal background and then connected it to Harvard and how to the things that you want to pursue at Harvard.
Exactly, yeah.
This
Yeah.
is a very common, and by the way, the essays and the in general application that we're showing right now are, I would say, extremely exclusive because they were not shared anywhere before. It's not like a, letter S girl essay, which is like all over TikTok, all over other social media platforms. Like, it's extremely unique, and you can definitely read and these essays and take an example for yourself, take an example for your essays. When it comes to that, this structure again is just, I would say, kind of like something that all accepted students have, of like first writing about personal of the things that they did, or personal context that you just did here. And in the second paragraph, it's all about connecting it back to Harvard and what you will be contributing to Harvard and the clubs you will start or you will collaborate with to achieve your goal of making educational opportunities more accessible, like in your case. Very interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
The second essay, what was your second essay about?
Yeah, so second essay, it was an intellectual discussion. So I wrote this essay about how I was applying to summer programs with a friend. Me and this friend, we would apply to all the summer programs together. So one of the first summer programs that we applied to, we were rejected from. It was one of the more competitive ones. And this really,
Research
really
Science
discouraged my
Institute.
friend. Sorry, what was that?
Was it Research Science Institute?
No.
Oh, okay. What was it?
I don't think I'll name the program right now, just
Okay, sure.
for
Yeah, no
just for
problem.
privacy reasons.
No problem.
Yeah, but
Let's just continue.
basically how I approached this was I just wanted to show my perspective on how I faced rejection. So the prompt is like what I'm learning from a time when I disagreed with someone. And one of the ways I approached this was just showing how I faced rejection compared to someone else facing rejection. And I specifically wanted to use a lot of like imagery, and I wanted to be really descriptive with the way I answered this. So like I said, throughout my essay, I just I wanted to paint out a full conversation because it really was a conversation between me and my friend. We had a conversation about what was wrong and his perspective compared to my perspective, and through that we were able to come through a resolution. And that honestly, this was one of the prompts that I struggled with the most, but this is just what I came up with at the end of it.
Interesting. But again, at the end, you connected back to Harvard and what you want to continue to do at Harvard, right? The lesson.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Always connecting it back to the lesson that you learned and how you're gonna apply it at Harvard.
Interesting. What was your extracurricular essay about? The next one.
Yeah. So this was my favorite essay of all time. So if any of your viewers want to see an essay that is good, this is probably the essay that they should look at. So this is the best essay that I've ever written in my entire life. So yeah, so
How exciting to be able to read it.
yeah, it is absolutely the best essay that I've ever written. I personally really love it. Basically, this is my extracurricular activity. So this wasn't in my activity list. It was never mentioned before. But my dad, he was a restaurant owner, so he ran a lot of businesses, and I basically helped him a lot throughout the restaurant. I used to really dislike it. I was a kid. I was like 10 years old. I didn't like helping him in the restaurant. I would rather be at home just playing on the iPad. But over time, I eventually began enjoying it. My entrepreneurial spirit developed, and I began really enjoying the restaurant and helping him out with the business and the business side of things. And yeah, so I feel like the way that I approached this essay was really unique. Starting it off with the weekends, and then I talked about my dad's issue as an immigrant, his perseverance, and then at the very end, talk about how I became an entrepreneur, a proud son of an immigrant, and then of course tie it back to the start, weekend lover. I think overall it's just a really unique way to describe a restaurant experience because many students who are applying from a first generation low income background, they probably have had experienced something similar to this with a restaurant family business. I just think personally the reason why this essay worked is because of the way I approached it. It was really unique, and the execution was very unique, and just I think it stood out a lot.
Interesting. And the last essay. Oh, no, no, it's not the last essay actually. It's the fourth last. Let's talk about
Yeah. hmm Yeah, so this one was really interesting because it really helped shape my narrative. So, like I said it before, my narrative was a lot about how I wanted to apply my interest in computer science to mitigating educational disparities in my city. And I did a lot of research for this, and I found out that there's a professor named Dr. Sweeney. She has something called the Public Interest Technology Lab, and she basically is doing exactly what I'm passionate about. She's using her passion for intersection of computer science and public policy, so exactly my interest, to advance societal equity. And for me personally, I specifically want to advance education. I want to bring more education to more people, and I believe you can do this through computer science and technology. So almost exactly what Dr. Sweeney is presenting. And throughout this whole essay, I'm just talking about how I want to work with her, what I'm going to do, and how her work is so essential to our world, because I genuinely believe integrating technology into our society is how we will save our world, and more specifically, providing educational opportunities for our youth and implementing it through computer science and public policy or government. That is how I believe I will contribute to the world, through specifically computer science and public policy.
Interesting. So, from what I understand, the reason why I'm assuming you were rejected by other universities except by Harvard is because of your supplemental essays primarily because the general one is applied to everywhere, right? But these supplemental essays were something that only sent to Harvard. And one of my guesses is first is researching, that you research Harvard really well, especially in this example, that you knew exactly who is the professor, but also what is your mission. Not only the name of the professor, but what is your mission and what was she doing. So researching is really something that helped you. And also another thing is just outlining specifically of how you're going to collaborate with her, mentioning unique courses like her grand challenges in technology society classes, and specificity is very, very important in this essay. And the last essay, top 3 things your roommates might like to know about you.
Yeah. So this was another one of my favorite essays. Actually, I forgot to mention earlier, but my admissions officer actually emailed me a few weeks after I got accepted and specifically quoted this essay. He said he really enjoyed reading this, and he also said he really enjoyed this essay. So those 2 essays were probably my 2 best ones. Yeah.
Outside of these 2 essays, what were other essays that, or what were other things that admissions officer mentioned in the letter?
Yeah, so my admissions officer reached out to me, and he was really specific about things. So he specifically mentioned this one, and then, like I said, my extracurricular essay, but he also talked about my personal statement, my approach with that. He talked a lot about my first extracurricular, so the nonprofit that I founded. And one thing he really also emphasized was my interview. So I had an interview for Harvard. It went really, really well. My interviewer said that I was in the closest way possible guaranteed to get in, but without being guaranteed. Because of course, interview can only go so far, but in his eyes, I was a guaranteed admit. So take that with how you will. But my interview went really well, and my admissions officer also mentioned that as well.
So 4 things, right? Your first extracurricular activity, your personal statement, the I hated weekends essays where you talk about helping your father with a restaurant, but then getting to love it, and then the 4th one, which is this essay, right? Was there anything else?
Yeah, and then just the interview. Yeah.
Oh, an interview, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Let's read this essay, man. Let's read this essay, and why do you think it was noted by Harvard admissions officer so much?
Yeah, so I kind of broke it down into, I think this was the year that I applied. This was the first year that they had this essay topic, so
Yeah.
there was no examples online for me to reference from.
It was actually
Honest,
this essay prompt was taken by Stanford, because
Yeah,
Stanford had it like
Stanford.
long time ago, and Harvard is like, all right, let me just put it here as well. Before you explain what you wrote in this essay, the common examples of what students wrote before and successful cases, right, is something quirky, something outside of academics, or something outside of studying, or something related to promoting your candidacy to get accepted, just showing your accomplishments. More of like quirky, like perhaps weird in some way, sides of you that show off your personality. How do you think it worked in your case?
Yeah, so with exactly how you're talking about, I wanted to use this essay. This was my last essay that I wrote. And throughout my entire other supplements, I talked a lot about how I'm going to approach Harvard and like the clubs that I'm going to join, the research groups I'm interested in, the courses I'm interested in. Enough said about my academics. And I wanted to reveal who I am as a person. So I broke this supplement down into 3 parts, and all of them were just explaining my hobbies, who I am, and some fun facts about me. So in my very first sentence, it's very easy to read. Just in the first sentence, you already know what I'm going to talk about. I have a lot of plants. So I'm a gardener. I love planting plants. Big on gardening, big hobby of mine. And then I talked about snacks. So I wanted to mention snacks so I can bring up my Indonesian and Chinese heritage. So that would reveal like who I am. So once again, it reveals more about my identity, and instead of just my academics. So now the admissions officer knows, okay, this guy, he's Indonesian and he's Chinese, and he's really into his heritage, especially when it comes to the food that comes with it. So even more identity. And finally, just a random fun fact. I'm really colorblind. It's really severe. So a lot of my room is black and white. My wardrobe is almost completely black and white because I almost can't see any colors. So this was
Really?
a really
Is this
yeah, yeah.
actual like fact?
Yes, yeah. So I'm really colorblind. A lot of my room is yeah.
Sorry to ask if it's a dumb question or it's irrelevant question, but do you see this like the interview that we're doing as black and white? Like to my understanding.
Uh, no, no. So the way colorblindness works, or specifically mine, is like I could still see colors, but it is very, very dull. So
Oh, got it.
yeah. So since I've been colorblind my whole life, like I've been used to differentiating colors. I know like that this color is blue or this color is red, just because like people tell me it. But
Got it.
from my perspective, it's very dull, almost like gray.
Oh, got it. Interesting. Okay. And my roommates can expect our window sills to be filled with cacti, succulents, and wildflowers. Okay, interesting. Um,
Yeah.
what do you think about this essay that caught Harvard admissions officers' eye so much? Was there anything specific you mentioned, or was it just like general?
Yeah, so actually, it was my plans. So, my admissions officers in my letter, he specifically mentioned my plants. He's also into gardening, so I kind of got lucky there.
Oh,
But he's
wow.
also into gardening. So when I mentioned that I had a lot of plants, of course, that creates a connection between me and my admissions officer.
Exactly.
We have something in common, and now he's already rooting for me.
Was it only the plants that he mentioned?
Yeah, it was only the plants. Yeah.
Interesting. And the remaining, so this essay was just about more of like um, quirky side of me, a little bit about my background, and like some fact about me about color blindness, right? Interesting. Look, Michael, a lot of people are watching this interview with the hope to get advice or with the hope to get guidance or maybe tips and tricks on what they should write for Harvard, right? Because clearly this is a university that everybody wants to get into, right? And what would be your advice on? Actually, I have three questions, right? So first question is, how do you advise students to differentiate themselves from others, right? Because clearly there's a lot of people applying for computer science, for government and economics, for many other universities. But first, how do you recommend students to differentiate themselves? Second, what resources would you recommend for students to write essays, right? And the third one I would say is your number one advice for students, like number one most important advice when it comes to college applications.
Yeah, so I'll start with the last question. I feel like the most important piece of advice that I could give to any student who's looking to apply is you just have to accept that you're applying as who you are. You can't change the past 17 years of your life. And what matters now is how you package your application. So I actually just made a video about this and talking about how one of the most important things that you can do on the common application, it's all about how you talk about yourself and how you portray yourself. Because I could have chosen to apply as only computer science, and I guarantee you I would have been rejected. But the fact is, I mentioned my interest in public policy, my community work, and I brought together my entire story. Because even though for the past 17 years of my life, I didn't have used to go gold or used to go platinum, I didn't have as many computer science extracurriculars, hackathons, or whatnot. I only had one. The fact is, I took that all of my profile all together and I packaged it into computer science, public policy, and I wrote stories and essays and supplements and personal statements about how I connected those two interests. The number one advice I can give is you can't change anything in the past. What matters now is just how you portray yourself and paint a beautiful picture on who you are as an applicant.
The question about how do you recommend students differentiating themselves from other students?
Yeah. So, as for differentiating yourself, the main focus that you want to look at is your classmates. So, admissions officers will typically compare you to your high school or people who are also applying in your area. So, for me specifically, I knew exactly who my competition was. I knew who was going to apply to Harvard, who was going to apply to these other top universities I was applying to. I knew who my competition was, and I knew them for the past 4 years. So, as harsh as it sounds, your closest friends are they're your toughest competition. You have to see what they're doing, and that's how you differentiate yourselves. Because if you look at the big pool of applicants, Harvard gets like 60,000 applicants per year. It's impossible to fully identify what every person, every applicant, all 60,000 of them are doing because it's just so many people. They're from everywhere around the world. But if you take a small portion of them and just only look at the students who are applying from your city or school, maybe, it's so much easier to differentiate yourself because you know what those students are doing. I knew what everyone else at my school was doing. They were doing school clubs, they were focused on their GPA, and they were lacking in extracurriculars. So I decided to expand heavily on my extracurriculars, and that's exactly how I differentiated myself.
Michael, when I first reached out to you to schedule an interview, first thing you said to me is that I was a part of the reason of the acceptance, right? Would you mind explaining a
Yes.
little bit of that and which content specifically helped you to
Yeah,
say
so
yes? Yes.
there's actually this one specific video there. I know this is a format that you practice a lot, but it's like do this if you want this, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this is a very common format that you do in your content. But this one specific video is extracurriculars. So if you want to get into Harvard, do this extracurricular. If you want to get into Stanford, do this extracurricular. And it's because these universities, they're looking for different things. You know, just because you get into Harvard doesn't mean you'll get into a lower ranked school, like, for example, like Cornell. Because Cornell and Harvard, they're looking for two entirely different types of people. Stanford and Harvard, they're looking for completely different types of applicants. And sure, some students will get into both schools, but not just because you get into a school with a lower acceptance rate doesn't mean you'll get into a school with a higher acceptance rate because each school is ultimately looking for a different type of student.
Yes, absolutely. All I can say that, yeah, you just nailed it effectively. Different schools look for different things. Again, just because you're accepted to Harvard doesn't mean you will also be accepted to some top 50 other university, regardless of the fact that it's less selective. And I think we effectively covered everything, right? One thing that I will ask you is when it comes to recommendation letters, how many recommenders did you have? Because Harvard clearly allows up to 6 optional rec letters.
Yeah, so I actually had, I think I had three letters of recommendation. So I had two letters of recommendation from my high school teachers. So those two recommendations were really good. I knew them, both of those teachers, very, very, very well. So amazing recommendations. And then my counselor recommendation. Actually, I forgot to mention this earlier too, but Yale and Columbia, they both reached out to my counselor and complimented him on my letter of recommendation. So in like I think it was February, late February, both Yale and Columbia, they both emailed my counselor, my high school counselor who wrote my letter of recommendation, and complimented on his recommendation. They also asked about my extracurriculars and asked what I was up to, just what I was doing. And this happened around like the same time within each other. So definitely really good letters of recommendation. And then actually I had four letters of recommendation. I had my research mentor for my computer science research paper write me a recommendation. He's at Stanford studying computer science.
Interesting. When it comes to resources that students can use to prepare for the college admissions in general, I would say first link that you'll find in the description is you can apply for a private strategy call with the advisors and mentors from my consulting company, right? So this is something that you can definitely and need to definitely apply to because it's a effectively strategy call where it will help you find your strategy to get accepted, whether that's finding your narrative or framing everything that you've done so far and presenting it correctly on the Common App and for the other universities as well, taking into account what other universities look for. Now, the second link that you'll find in the description is Michael's Instagram and my Instagram, right, where you can find tons of free information on what different universities look for and what you should do and what you should write in your essays. And these are definitely the resources that you should check out, especially with Michael. He shares a lot of free college advice. I would say only free college advice as of now, at least. So you want to definitely check out his Instagram. And with that in mind, Michael, thank you for coming on. It was an amazing interview. Hope you had a great experience sharing your application as well.
Yes, thank you so much.